Hello, welcome to my channel. I am doing a Storytime series right now, and this is currently part 6. So if you've missed the other parts, go on back and watch them, and then you can come back to this video. So we left off, we are now in summer of 2019. It's either late June or early July, our dog that we'd had for 10 years ended up dying. She had Cushing's disease, and we kind of knew it was coming. Her mother had it. The vet had said that, he thought that she could develop it when we had brought her in for like a checkup, and she had like a little bit of a lump on her side, and we were just making sure there's nothing wrong with her. He had said that the lump was fine, but that she was at risk for developing Cushing's, I think mostly because of her family history of it, but it was really sad when we had to put her down. And then late July, or I guess it was mid-July, I'm outside with my kids and with the kids that I babysit, and my husband is in his shed, and I get a phone call from my aunt, and she's telling me that my cousin Joey, who was basically like my brother, had just died in a fire. And I lost it. I was hysterical. I was so upset. I had to call all 4 of my sisters, and then we had to tell my mom. My husband actually ended up going with my sister to tell my mom because she was not answering her phone, and we needed to tell her because he was like a son to her, like that. I could do a whole video on Joey, but I won't, because that's not what this is about. Although if Joey had survived, this wouldn't have happened. But anyway, so that was absolutely awful. That was an absolutely terrible time. And so they ended up doing the funeral for Joey on my birthday, and he lived in the next state over. So it was a couple hours, maybe like 3-hour drive to go to this funeral. And I think it was on a Sunday. So my husband ended up either asking for the day off or calling into work. But whatever it was, they were like, absolutely not. And they fired him. And I was like, what do you mean they're firing you? Like, we were kind of furious. We're like, are you kidding me? Like, he's going to a funeral. And, of course, unbeknownst to me, there was a lot more going on behind the scenes that I was not aware of. But at the time, I was furious. I was like, how could these people do this to you? Like, we were going to my cousin's funeral. Like, I was so mad. So he ended up collecting unemployment. And he had told me that his friend that he spent, so much time with, had a lot of side work, and he would just be able to do the side work for him. He could do that throughout the rest of the summer, and maybe even into fall, possibly even winter, like if they did like snow removal, because I guess they did like gravel stuff, all this stuff he told me about. And I was like, okay, you know what? If you can, at least get some side work while you're collecting your unemployment, that gives us a little breathing room and some time for you to find another job. So that happens, and then end of August, the kids and I had a vacation planned. And, like I said, my husband did not go on vacations with us, so it's just us. We took off, we went on this vacation, everything was well. The vacation, was fine. We had a good time. We came home, and everything seemed normal. And so we fast forward to, this is summer. So then, we get back. It's time my husband takes his annual trip that he took every year for Labor Day goes up to his dad's. During that time, that's when the kids and I usually do our back to school shopping. So we did that. We went and did our back to school shopping, and I obviously didn't spend as much as I had the year before because we didn't have that income coming in. So I was a little more careful with money, but we were still able to get the back to school stuff, the stuff the kids needed to get. They had got some stuff while we were on vacation because I had been saving for quite a while for this vacation. So I had souvenir money, stuff like that for them. So that was all well and fine. But we get home and I noticed that money's not really there the way it's supposed to be. Like our bank account is like getting negative, and there's bills aren't being paid, and I'm like, what is going on? So I decide to check and make sure that he's getting his unemployment, and he tells me, yeah, he's getting his unemployment, but there's some sort of issue. And I'm like, okay, we've got to be able to pay our bills. Like, we've got to make sure that this money's coming in the way it's supposed to. And so, he assures me that he's working with this guy and that everything's going to be fine. So then he starts bringing home cash. And so I want to say, I don't remember when I did this, but I got a prepaid. It must have been around this time because he let our bank account get empty. So I went and got like a prepaid debit card, like a green dot or something like that. Yeah, it was a green dot. And I set up a bank account. I made it so his unemployment was going into that account, and just to make sure we could pay the bills. So I'm paying the bills, like I'm getting money from my work. He's getting money from this unemployment, and whatever he's making with this side job, I'm just letting him keep in cash. And he would give me cash occasionally. Here's some money for the bills, whatever. So I was just kind of skating by. And so, we're getting through the summer and the fall with this, and, Christmas comes, and, we still manage to, we're still scraping by. Like, it's rough, but, he gets, he really doesn't get, unemployment really doesn't give you very much, but, we kind of get through it. And he's still spending all of his time over, at this guy's house that he hangs out with, this friend of his, and he's kind of started to get a little bit like crankier than normal, but I chalked it up to stress. We had a rough go. We had lost our dog that we'd had for 10 years. There's my cousin, and then he had lost his job, and financially things were a little bit rough. And then to make matters worse, my friend James, that he did not like because he did not believe that we were just friends, had reached out to me about another mutual friend who was going through a mental health crisis, and he wanted me and him to kind of talk to this friend and make sure that he was okay and that he wasn't gonna harm himself. And my husband didn't like that. He did not want me talking to these people, he didn't like it. And I basically was like, too bad, so sad. Which I know is kind of mean, but remember, I still had completely emotionally detached from his affair back in 2016, and I was still there. I was still emotionally detached. So I was essentially like, well, sorry you don't like it, but it is what it is. Deal with it, basically. And so that was kind of where we were at in that situation. It was tense, but it wasn't super bad at that point. It was just a lot of bickering, and he was increasingly angry and kind of starting to get borderline paranoid. Suddenly, he wants to put cameras up everywhere, and he's accusing me of things left and right, and I'm just kind of ignoring it and rolling my eyes as much as possible and just kind of letting him be mad. So then in the next video we will discuss what happened after this. So please subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks, Viv. Bye.